Welcome to Boogie Gore, the true crime podcast where the cases are dark, but our humour is darker.
We're your hosts, Annetta and Jade, here to dig up the creepiest crimes, the strangest suspects, and probably make way too many inappropriate jokes along the way. Jade.
Well, if you're here for professionalism, bless your heart.
And if you came here for serious, buttoned-up crime analysis, you definitely took a wrong turn at Google.
We laugh at murderers, not at the victims.
Because if we didn't laugh, we'd probably cry.
This is Boogie Gore.
Nailed it!
Killed it.
Had a little giggle in the middle, as if we just thought of the joke.
Right? On the spot.
Shit, we're good.
I ad-libbed.
I feel like we're getting a lot more professional. I'm
Yeah.
actually really excited for this intro.
Yeah, same.
And the music, this is going to be...
We're going to be like the real thing.
It was a bit heartening to hear that it was only 60 seconds that it counts.
I mean, we've got to be professional. We're worldwide.
Well, cool to say.
Right?
Top 100 Chile.
We'll die on that hill.
I'm going to climb that forever.
I love seeing every week the places
Where we
like
go,
when you send
yeah.
the list of where people are listening is
Yeah.
insane.
The Brian Koberger episode is definitely kicking off in America right now.
Nice.
A lot of random states.
Yeah, because it's
He keeps coming up on stories just
yeah.
because he's complaining in jail. It's so annoying. Side quest from the get-go.
Good week.
It was pretty average. Same shit, different day. I just
It's
want to
hard-
quit my job, do this for a living.
Oh, wouldn't that be amazing?
That would be amazing.
I guess it's hard to ask, how's your week been when it's 3 o'clock on a Monday?
You just meant like the week from. Yeah.
The case that I'm doing today is one I have mentioned a few times before about doing. It's about a South Australian mass killer, spoiler alert, family annihilator.
Yeah.
So they refer to a family annihilator as a man who, I say man because 9.9 times out of 10, it is a man. They snap and kill the entire family. When I was doing the research into this, the difference between men and women, family annihilators, female family annihilators tend to kill the children.
I was about to say, it's
Yeah.
usually like a motherly
Yeah. Whereas the men
host
will take out the whole family. They always believe they're doing it for a good reason. It's not, you know what, I'm just going to kill everyone. Quite often it starts with the man wanting to kill the wife and then the children just become collateral damage.
Yeah.
Whereas a lot of the times from what I saw with the women, it's the women believe that they're keeping the kids safe by killing them. Either way, there's something in the brain that tells them that they're doing the right thing and that killing them is the best thing to do, which is disgusting. But this case is very... I guess can be somewhat enraging. To this day, this is still the largest mass family killing in all of Australia.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So in 2002, Clifford Palmer, a devoted husband, a loving and supportive stepfather, a cherished poppy, would pass away at the age of 72. He had lived a wonderful life with his wife of 22 years and his 7 adopted children. His family always knew that losing the man they loved and adored would devastate them. But what would devastate them more would be the secrets they learned after the passing of both Clifford and their mother, Mel. When Clifford married Mel around 1982, the family welcomed him with open arms, loved, adored and respected their mother and made her happier than they'd ever seen. He accepted all 7 of her children and quickly loved and cherished them like his own. He was funny, kind, caring, supportive, hardworking, and a devout man of God. Everything that Mel's family would want in a partner and father. However, after his passing, while his family was sorting his and Mel's things, they would come across a collection of newspaper clippings collected by their mother. These clippings would tell the story of a man who was evil, a man who committed murder. Well, murders. 10 of them, actually.
That's a lot.
Yep. So in the 1950s, Clifford Bartholomew met Heather, who already had a son from a previous marriage, and they quickly married, with Clifford accepting Heather's son Neville as his own. Clifford found work on a property in Hope Forest near Wollonga, South Australia. So I've seen him reported as both being a truck driver and an abattoir worker.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not sure exactly what he did at the farm. Whatever it was he did, he very quickly impressed his boss. Whatever it was that he did, he very quickly impressed his boss, and his boss offered the Bartholomew family a home on the property. I mean, how easy, like
Yeah,
living where
that's
you
nice
work.
there.
Simple. They took him up on this offer, and the happy couple would move into the home and go on to have 6 more children together. In the years the family lived and worked on the property, they cared for it like their own, and as the children grew, they would also join in with helping around the farm. No one ever reported the family seeming anything but happy. They never saw the couple fight, never saw them not getting along, never saw them disagreeing or anything untoward. From the outside, they looked like the ideal family. In the 1970s, the Bartholomew family would welcome a 22-year-old Vietnam veteran into their home. He had nowhere to live upon returning to Australia, and the family were happy to have him join them until he was able to get back on his feet. However, Clifford quickly began to suspect his wife was having an affair with the man who has never been publicly named. Heather would take care of the home, cooking, cleaning, and caring for the children, so when this man joined the home, he slotted in like one of her kids, being only 3 years older than Heather's oldest son, Neville. What Heather swears was just mothering appeared to Clifford as signs of affection and adoration, and as the weeks passed, Clifford's jealousy grew and grew to the point where Heather kicked him out of the family home because his jealousy and subsequent aggression was too much for her to take. The Vietnam veteran boarder swore that nothing untoward ever happened between the two. So Clifford, once being kicked out, left and moved approximately 10 kilometres away into his own stepmother's home. The veteran then shortly moved out as he could not handle the drama and accusations and felt if he was gone, the family could return to normal.
That's sweet.
Yeah.
Bless his cotton socks.
Right. So one day, Clifford had visited the home to gather some of his belongings, and while looking for them, he stumbled across a letter written by his wife. He naturally assumed it was to the veteran, and this enraged him more. He was now certain they were having an affair. However, police would later say it seemed like the letter was written for Neville. Clifford would wait in the home that day to confront his wife about the letter that he felt proved her infidelity. However, she steadfastly denied any affair and swore she only saw him as a mother would see a child. He was 22 and she was 40. Old bag? Who's 40? Gross. Eventually, Clifford would leave the home that day after a screaming match, and it would be then over a month before he would return to the family. It's not known why it would take a month, but I assume it was probably because they'd argued and Heather had had enough and was like, no, you can stay away.
Yeah.
Um, so during this time away, Clifford was still certain that this was only a temporary break and his wife would come to her senses and have him back. So it wouldn't be until Father's Day, September the 5th, 1971, when Clifford would be back in the home to visit his family. Heather hosted a large get-together at the home that day where family would attend to share in the festivities, including Heather's sister. And this is another one that's everywhere I look, I find something different.
Mm-hmm.
So I've seen her name written as Winnie, I've seen it written as Eunice, and I've seen it written as Winnis.
Oh.
So
Winnie's like a nickname of it, and then
yeah. So I don't know if that was the case. Is Eunice her legal name and is Winnie maybe short for Eunice?
yeah.
As I've written this, I've called her Eunice because it seemed more period correct
Mm-hmm.
to me. However, if her name is Winnie, I do apologize. I'm just gone off of whatever I found. Heather's sister Eunice would attend the home that day with her 18-month-old son and other family members. Eunice herself had had a daughter in her teens that was now being raised by her and Heather's aunt. And on that day, Eunice had begged the aunt for her daughter Nolene to visit and spend the day with the family enjoying the celebrations. So the girl's aunt's son, Terry, who is Heather and Eunice's cousin, would bring Nolene over for the day so she could spend the day playing with the kids and spending time with her mum and everything else that you do at a family party.
Yeah, bring all the kids around.
That's it. So the day was going well with everyone having so much fun that it was decided that Eunice, Daniel, and Nolene would stay the night. Seeing as it was Father's Day, Heather reached out to Clifford, inviting him to come and join the celebrations, which he was more than thrilled to do. When he arrived to the home, he was ignored by everybody except Sandy, he and Heather's 4-year-old daughter. She ran up to him, throwing her arms around her dad, crying and laughing and begging for him to come home. After being reunited with Sandy, Clifford would sit in a chair where he spent the rest of the day, not being acknowledged by any of the partygoers, and this led Clifford to grow bitter and sullen. Sometime throughout the day, Terry noticed the change in Clifford and decided to leave the party, taking Nolene with him. Despite Eunice's pleas for her to stay the night, Terry thought it seemed safer to take her home.
Wow.
No, I'll just take her with me now, he said, leaving and taking the child home with him. He later said that night that he could tell something wasn't right and he didn't want to leave the girl in harm's way. It would turn out Terry listening to his gut would in fact save her life that
I was
day.
going to say, what kick-ass instincts or
Yep.
like intuition.
Yep. Absolutely.
Well done.
And you think things like this show you how many times your gut will tell you something and
Yeah.
you ignore it and you're like, should have fucking listened.
Yep.
He listened and that saved her life.
Yeah.
So after the party, when all the children had gone to bed, Clifford took the opportunity to speak with Heather, hoping that reaching out to her after a fun, happy family day would get her soft spot and she would be happy for the family to finally reunite. However, Heather made it very clear that night that they would not be reuniting and took the chance to ask Clifford for a divorce. She tried to make it very clear to him that he could see the kids whenever he wanted. However, once the divorce was finalized, she would be taking the kids and moving to Ross Trevor for a fresh start. Clifford immediately saw this as Heather's intentions to take the children from him for good and for her to start a relationship with the veteran. So wherever the veteran had moved to was somewhere near Ross Trevor. So that's what gave him that intention. Everybody involved has always sworn that there was nothing happening.
there.
I was watching a episode on YouTube about this, and it was a guy in America who'd done the case, and he was calling Ross Trevor Rose Trevor. And it was hilarious every time I was hearing it. And I don't know what he thinks Australia is, but he was calling everywhere villages. So he was just like, oh, and they were going to move to the nearby village of Ross Trevor or Rose Trevor, where the veteran
Probably like
lived.
shanty towns.
Yeah, it was like, where the veteran lived in another village nearby. And I'm like, villages? What the fuck? It was 1970s, mate.
It's a suburb, bro.
It's a suburb.
But
And then-
that's also, I probably get so many American. I used to say
Yeah.
Yosemite instead of Yosemite.
Yeah, I just thought it was absolutely hilarious to hear the way he was saying it. Every time he said it, I was having a little giggle to myself. I just thought it was hilarious. So, enraged by the conversation, Clifford would return to his stepmother's home, where he fetched her gun, a rubber mallet, and a lot of ammunition. He then drove back to the home he once shared with his wife and children and sat in his car far enough away from the home so that he could see when the lights would go out. And he waited in the car until he knew everyone had gone to bed. About 12 that night, when he was certain everyone would be asleep, he got out of the car, grabbed the gun, the mallet, and the bullets, and quickly and quietly snuck back into the home. He went straight to the room that he shared with his wife and found her asleep. However, due to Eunice and Daniel staying the night, Heather wasn't in bed alone. 3 of the Bartholomew's children were sleeping in the bed with their mother. Clifford's intentions were to take his anger out on his wife, but now he had the obstacle of doing so without waking the children. He planned to hit her over the head, grab her out of the bed unconscious, and sneak away into the night where he would murder her. But as he reached over the children with the mallet and struck Heather in the head, intending to knock her out, maybe hopefully killing her, he found the strike did nothing but wake her up. And as she woke to see her husband looming over her with the mallet in her hand, Heather began screaming. Her screams woke Eunice, who came running in to see what was happening, and as she ran in the room, she found Clifford standing there over the top of her sister with a mallet in hand. As Clifford noticed Eunice at the door, his attention turned straight to her and he ran for her. Eunice screamed and ran straight out of the house with Clifford close enough behind to strike her with the mallet. However, this didn't stop Eunice's stride and she kept running and calling for help. She managed to reach the car and attempted to start it, but it wouldn't start. Clifford reached her, pulled her from the car, struck her multiple times with the mallet before shooting her close range in the head.
I feel like you're reading me like a narrative of like a
movie.
horror movie, chase scene and everything.
Right? As I was writing this, I was like, this is absolutely a movie. And then all I could feel as I was typing it, I could feel the anxiety in her as she
The
was
adrenaline.
running. You could almost feel as she could feel her heart skipping a beat because she was running so fast. And I could picture, because it's
Trying to start the car.
yeah, hands just not working like you see in every horror movie. Trying to open the
And he's
door
just
and
walking.
yeah, that was everything that I pictured in my head. Like her trying to get the key in and sticking the door key in the ignition.
I'm on the edge of my seat.
It was just so, you could just see it all. So by this stage, everyone in the house was awake and the children were running through the home screaming, not really sure what was happening. Right? It's a movie. Not really sure what was happening, but knowing all too well that whatever was happening wasn't very good. As he came to re-enter the home, He came face to face with Christine, his 17-year-old daughter. It was well known that Christine was his favourite child, with people often laughing that the pair were more like girlfriends than father and daughter. Christine would tell her father everything, and he simply adored her. Knowing that she was her father's weakness, Dean stood in the doorway, blocking her father from re-entering the home and begging him to stop. If anyone could stop him and get through to him, it would be her.
That's
How
so sad.
Right? Like, imagine being, I mean, obviously we're hearing all of this from his point of view, but imagine knowing that he loved you that much that you're like, it's all right, I can stop this.
Yeah, he won't hurt me.
Yeah. Yeah. So she put herself in front of the whole family thinking that she would be that roadblock that would stop him, that she could put sense in him.
Snap him out of whatever rage he was
That's it.
in.
Like, he's going to get to the door, he's going to see me, he's going to realize he loves me, and he's going to stop. Clifford would take no pity on the girl, and he lifted his rifle and shot her in the face while she was still begging for him to stop.
Oh my God, that's not what I expected.
She fell to the floor, and he stepped straight over her limp body and returned to finish what he'd started with Heather. Heather was still lying on the floor, bleeding profusely, while Helen, 13, Gregory, 10, and 4-year-old Sandy were screaming on the bed. Clifford returned to the room and shot Heather point-blank range, killing her instantly in front of her 3 children. He then turned the gun on the children, killing all 3 of them right there in the place that they slept safe and soundly only a few minutes beforehand. He left the room, where he then came face to face with his 15-year-old daughter, Sharon. Upon seeing her father, she turned to run and obviously turned her back to him. He lifted the rifle and shot at her back as she ran. However, he only managed to shoot her in the hand. Sharon ran and hid under the bed, but Clifford followed her and dragged her out from under the bed by her hair, putting the rifle in her face and pulling the trigger, killing her instantly.
Oh my God.
Yeah, this, like, I'd heard bits and pieces of the case but never looked into it this much.
Yeah.
This is probably one of, like, I'm going to sound like such a psychopath right now. I read and see so many things. I'm so desensitized to it. And I'm just like, oh, that's fucked. Like, and keep moving on. While I was reading and listening to all the details of this, it was breaking my heart.
Yeah, I think I'm getting a little teary. I think it's because he's the dad.
Yep.
He was supposed, like,
His one job is to protect you and keep you safe.
yeah.
And he had done that so well up until this moment.
But, I just don't get how he could literally go from being, yes, he was pissed off at Heather, but the kids did absolutely nothing.
Don't take my kids away from me, so I'm going to annihilate them.
Yeah.
Like,
We're both teary-eyed.
right? It was like, listening to this was, especially, I think, because it does seem so much like a horror movie.
Yeah.
Like, dragging someone out from under the bed and shooting them.
Yeah.
Like, that's a horror movie thing. You don't do that to your fucking kid.
Mm.
And not that it makes it any better, but, you know, you hear these situations where, like Bertha Shippen, if we go with the narrative that it was her dad, he was a cunt.
Yeah.
He was already a grumpy, horrible
You expected
person.
that. Yeah.
That's it. He wasn't this amazing, good dad that
you'd
loved-
stand in front of.
Yeah. Yep. And then
Wow.
goes and does this. Like, yeah, terrible. I reckon it's probably probably the only case that has actually brought me to tears. And it's, again, going to make me sound like a psychopath, but not so much what he did, but the fact that he did it.
Yes, I think that's what it is. I think that's what's killing us. Right?
Yep.
Oh, wow.
So in another room of the house, you think it sounded like a horror movie already.
Oh, shit.
Buckle up, baby. So in another room of the house, 19-year-old Neville had woken up and would have had plenty of opportunity to leave to reach safety. He wanted to do so much more. While Clifford walked down the hallway between the rooms, Neville snuck up behind him, hoping to disarm him. However, Clifford spotted Neville behind him in the mirror hanging on the hallway wall.
Oh, no.
And quickly turned and shot his stepson point blank range in the face.
Shit.
The last of the Bartholomew's children to be executed was 7-year-old Roger. That was 9 murders in merely minutes. As the dust settled, Clifford noticed he could hear moans and muffled noises. He returned outside to find noises coming from Eunice. He pointed the barrel of the gun right up against her forehead and shot 2 more times to guarantee that she was dead. The farm returned to dead silence, and Clifford walked into the kitchen, sat at the table and poured himself a drink. When the realization suddenly struck him that there was still one person alive in the home, Eunice's 18-month-old son who had slept through the whole event.
Shut up.
Despite the fact the toddler slept and knew nothing of what had happened, Clifford lifted the rifle, pointed it at the child, and ended his life with one shot. Dazed, Clifford returned to the kitchen and picked up the phone to call his stepmother to tell her everything that he had just done. He told her that he had annihilated his whole family in mere minutes. She screamed and hung the phone up on him. He then called the police and told them everything he had done and sat back at the table to continue drinking. Police attended the shocking scene and were greeted by Eunice's body upon arrival, before entering the home to find children grasping onto their teddy bears, hiding under their beds, and hiding under blankets from a father who loved them so, so much. Detective Alan Arthur arrived to the remote Hope Forest farm to find Clifford quietly and calmly drinking a beer at the family table, surrounded by the scattered, executed bodies of his wife, 7 children, sister-in-law, and baby nephew. Arthur would state that when he spoke to Clifford, he spoke clearly and pleasantly. He showed no signs of distress, no signs of sadness or compassion. He was cool, calm, and very matter of fact, especially for someone who had just killed 10 people that he shared loves, laughs, and memories with. 54 years later, this night still remains the deadliest mass family murder in Australian history, yet Bartholomew's names and the names of his victims are very rarely known. Heather Alice Bartholomew, 40 years old. Neville Kenneth Bartholomew, 19. Christine Heather Bartholomew, 17. Sharon Ann Bartholomew, 15. Helen Joy Bartholomew, 13. Gregory Kim Bartholomew, 10. Roger Clifford Bartholomew, 7. Sandra June Bartholomew, 4. Eunice Mary Keane, 23. Daniel Brian Sean Keane, 18 months. Of all the cases Arthur has worked on, this one still chills him to the bone to this day. He keeps the crime scene photos in his home as he cannot bear to get rid of them. I have one wish for his soul, Arthur shared, and that is that he rots. I have no sympathy for this man whatsoever. You will never convince me he was a good person. Once he was arrested, Bartholomew confessed to everything. He told police how he had only intended to kill his wife, but once he had shot Christine, he knew that he had to then go through with killing the rest of them. He couldn't leave any of them behind. It would hurt them too much, and he loved them too much to know he'd caused them that pain. Strangely enough, in family annihilation cases, that's true.
So yeah,
That
it's
is
because
completely what they believe.
they know that they would lose all sense of respect or
Yeah.
all sense of anything
Yep,
from that family member.
yep. And they, in their mind, they're going, well, can't leave the kids behind because if I've killed Christine, Sandra's going to be like, well, why didn't he kill me? And then they got to deal with the fact they lost their mum and their auntie and their sister.
Yeah.
So they genuinely think they're doing the right thing by
Mhm.
killing the rest of them, as twisted as that is.
Yeah.
So initially, Bartholomew was sentenced to death by hanging. He was only ever convicted for the murder of Heather, as that was the only crime that prosecution could prove premeditation in, and premeditated murder carried a mandatory death sentence. Arthur shared that he only charged him with the one murder, as he couldn't get any more of a sentence than death. So irrespective of how many murders he was charged with, he only needed to be found guilty of the one. The other murders may have been covered by excuses such as blind rage, mental health issues, etc. But Heather, they had premeditation and a confession. In the 1970s, the Dunstan government abolished the death penalty, so all death row inmates had their sentences commuted to life imprisonment. But somehow, with good behaviour, Clifford was paroled after serving only 8 years in prison.
Sorry. What?
Yep.
8 years.
Yep, and because all the murders happened on the same night, at the same time, in the same event, he couldn't be trialed for any of the other deaths. He killed 10 people and served 8 years.
Out of sheer that happened to get rid of that.
Yep,
And wow.
yep. Because I was reading an interview with the detective and he said, like I said, there's no point charging him for the other 9 murders because can't get any more of a sentence than death, and they wanted him to hang.
Yeah.
Which is why they went for the case that had the premeditation. Because even if they'd gone the other cases and they'd done temporary insanity, mental health, he still probably would have received life in jail. He just wouldn't have received the death penalty. So Arthur, this haunts him because had he done the other 9 cases, he wouldn't have been released.
Regardless whether they got rid of the death penalty or not, he would still be in prison for all those other murders. Yeah.
That's it, because while his sentence, the death penalty sentence would have dropped, he still would have had 9 life sentences to serve.
Yes. And sorry, because then he continued on his life and then had 7 adopted children.
Yep.
Fucking what?
Yep.
Just trying to replace them and had a happy life?
The file on how and why Clifford was able to be released was merely one page. It stated that depression and mental illness had caused the events of that night, and a psychologist reported that he would never repeat this behaviour again. The case, this infuriates me and shows how far the world has come, thankfully. The case was considered an abhorrent domestic violence incident and therefore a lesser crime than if he had done this to 10 strangers.
Sorry, why?
Yep. Yep. If it was strangers, he would have never been let out of prison because he would have been proved to be nothing but dangerous. However, as it was family, logic suggests he's not a threat to anybody else. Logic suggests let's let him out while he's still young enough to have another family.
That he could potentially
Yep.
butcher. There's violent tendencies that don't. What the fuck?
Yep.
I don't know who I want to argue with, bro.
Right. Evidently, it would prove that the only thing that made him want to kill you was you leaving him. So because his new wife never left him, she didn't get murdered.
Maybe. But she had those
Yep.
details on him. So I wonder how far into the relationship she found that he was.
Some things that I saw said that they were actually prison pen pals.
Oh.
And that she was very heavily religious and believed in giving him another chance.
Yeah.
But I also saw other stuff saying they got married very, very quickly. He was released in 1979. They got married in 1982. So in those times, I don't feel like 3 years is very, very quickly. The fact that she already had children and everything else, I feel like it would have been very quickly would have been months, not 3 years.
Yeah, 3 years sounds like a while.
So yeah, I'm not 100% certain how they met. So in 1979, Clifford Bartholomew was released to his hometown of Port Adelaide. However, after receiving numerous death threats, it was proven that it was safer for him to be given a new name and moved to Melbourne on the South Australian government's dime.
Why are we funding this shit?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
We fund the wrong things in this country.
Yep. Let's keep a family annihilator safe. Let's do that. That sounds great.
It's almost like you're so angry that makes you want to cry.
Yeah, right?
Yeah.
Clifford Palmer was now living in Melbourne and released to have a second lease at life. He would go on to live out his days in Queensland, surrounded by the love of his wife of 22 years, Mel, his adopted children and grandchildren, and was buried under a headstone that reads, "Dearly loved husband of Mel, devoted and sadly missed by children and grandchildren." Poppy Cliff was a hard-working and gentle man who nobody had a bad word for, except for poor little Nolene, who spent the rest of her life fearing the return of Uncle Barty. So it's just crap in every
way that he got to live out a life.
And, they look at crimes like this, they look at the victims, the dead people, completely understandable. But no doubt the veteran lived his life with guilt because he would feel that somehow he was to blame for
living there, for starting this whole narrative in his head of them. Yeah.
Yep. Nolene would live her life obviously thankful of Terry, but in fear because she was scared. She was constantly scared that Bart was coming back. He was coming back to get her. And it wasn't until 2012, I think, when a reporter for the Advertiser stumbled upon this case and looked into it, looked into what happened with him once he was released. That's when he found out about the second marriage and the whole new life. And he actually found Nolene and went to speak to her and told her that he'd died.
Yeah.
And she didn't know.
Oh.
So he'd been dead for 10 years and she wasn't aware. And she said it was like she can sleep now.
Wow.
So 54 years, she was terrified that he was going to come back because he hadn't finished the job because she was meant to be there and she wasn't.
Yeah.
Terry referred to Nolene. It was just, I can't believe I didn't write it down because it was the sweetest thing that I've ever heard anyone say. That family, who ended up raising Nolene, and, she's their sister for all intents and purposes. Terry said, Nolene was the candle that came into our life to light our days.
Oh, that's beautiful.
Is that not the most precious thing you've ever heard?
Yeah.
I want to be called a candle. It was so sweet. But there's all that, like, his stepmother, he took her gun.
Yeah.
Like, there's so many other people that were victimized by this crime other than just the victims. So
Yeah.
him being released is just ludicrous. And why does he get to live a life and, just happens to meet a woman with 7 children after he'd killed his own 7 children?
7 children. Oh, yeah, that's such a random
Like,
number of children.
he got his happy ending, happy ever after. Everything that I found on him all said that prior to the crime, top bloke. After being released and marrying Mel, top bloke. It was just that snap.
That's wild. I think I'm mad because he's obviously dead now, but he didn't suffer in any way. He didn't.
No.
I was going to say, like, he barely went to jail. Freaking hell. 8 years.
That's not even a year per person. That's like, 7 months per person that he killed.
Yeah, if you look at it that way, that's like yuck.
That's insane. I just don't understand how the justice system works sometimes. How can a sentence for murder be so low, especially when you were on death row?
And especially when it was so brutal as well.
He didn't just, like, leave the gas on. They were all in bed asleep and he left the gas on and they just all peacefully died.
Yeah.
Like, that was chasing people down.
It was such a violent. He had so many opportunities to be like, what the fuck am I doing?
Exactly. That were executions.
That was exactly an execution.
Yeah.
Point blank in the head.
There was at no point did anything switch in his brain that said, hold on, this isn't right.
When his supposedly favorite child was screaming at him for him to stop.
And if you're in this rage, this blind rage, and walking through the house just shooting everything that moves, like it appears he was, okay, that's one thing. But then you sit down, you calm down, you have a beer, and then you go, shit, the baby.
I've left the baby that has witnessed not a single thing.
That even if he had, wouldn't be able to tell anyone anyway.
Wouldn't realize and comprehend what's happening. Like, they would not remember any of that.
That's it. And, like, Eunice was married, so she has a husband somewhere who's the father of that child. But you've now taken a child from another man.
Yeah, you're not saving it from anything.
That's it. When your whole problem was someone taking children from you. But you've gone and taken his child and his wife. How do you
Where's the
point a gun?
There is absolutely no logic.
How do you point a gun at a sleeping toddler and pull the trigger? And, like, I'm going to be jade right now, but it says rifle. Everything that I read says rifle. You've got that rifle on that baby and you pull the trigger. That's doing some damage. Fuck.
I am grasping what you're saying.
Yeah.
I'm getting what you're putting down and I'm visualizing that.
Yeah. Like, I don't feel like he would have been found peacefully in his cot.
I was going to say, what would have been left?
Yes.
Kind of thing.
Yeah. And it's like things like this, and you think too, like, you can't help but think of the officers that went out there, especially in that time when there hadn't been a crime like this committed. This wasn't every day. They weren't walking into murder scenes every single day, let alone, like, when I read about them, there was a picture on one of the posts of it said one of the girls, which I assume was probably, I think it was either Sandy or Sharon, had this white bunny, stuffed bunny in their arms. That killed me.
Yeah.
I'm like, this child is young enough to seek protection in a soft toy, and you put a shotgun to them.
And they were found still hanging on to those teddies and toys.
Those police officers that had to go in there. No wonder this never left that guy's mind.
Yeah.
He's got to know this is the most horrific thing he's ever dealt with in his career, and this guy's walking around free. Every time that phone rang, he would have thought, yep, this is it. He's done something else. Like, you would have,
instantly blamed yourself.
He would have instantly regretted not pursuing the other murders.
The other option, yeah.
But at the time, he was right. Like, why put it on trial? Why go through all that time and all that effort? This is someone who should have hung.
The way the justice system, it just shows you how they've grown in some aspects,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
then others you're like, no matter what the times, that was like 70s, 80s. That is
Yeah, so
not
it's not
that,
really that long ago.
it's not
Yep,
really that of a old era, if
yep.
that's what I'm trying to get at.
It's
I
54 years ago.
mean, I know it's
My
a
like
long time now, like we're in 2020s, like
but it's still,
well
like,
to realize, but
my my m my mum would have been, what, 8 years old when it
mhm.
happened. So I'm sure my nana would remember this case.
Yeah,
Like, there's
100%.
people alive who would
Remember it happening still.
exactly. And, like, this woman was the other thing that got me was her being 40 and the kid being 19. That's me and my son.
Yeah,
Like,
and he thinks that something's
yeah, like,
yeah.
life over. If he'd just stopped being a jealous prick, he wouldn't have been getting divorced.
Mm.
But it just shows how fragile our brains can be and how it can take one tiny little thing to turn someone who, for all intents and purposes was a great man. Like, everything you hear about him, he was a hardworking, good bloke, supported his family, loved his children. Like, I don't think you hear much of in the 70s a dad and his daughter being referred to as girlfriends.
Yeah,
Like,
being that close.
you don't that was when men were still hardworking men and the woman looked after the house. And so
Mm.
for him to have that relationship with his daughter
Yeah.
is beautiful. And that speaks volumes of who he was and the fact that he had that relationship then with his adopted children.
So they're all still alive, aren't they?
Yeah. Yeah.
Would they
And
have had much to say?
well, it said that when they found all the cuttings and stuff, they ended up having a family meeting where they got anyone who was adult age together
Yeah.
and told them all. And there was, like they were saying in there, they like couldn't believe it because this is him. He's in the photos. They know it's him.
But they just couldn't put those two people
Yeah,
together. They were two
two,
wildly different
yep,
people. Yeah.
absolutely. Because they said, he came in and took on a woman with 7 children, and there was no like cooling off period where he had to learn to love them. As
Then
soon
he
as
just
he was in
instantly
their
loved them.
family, they
Yeah.
were his children,
Yeah.
and he loved them and he cared for them and he worked hard for them and supported them and went to soccer games and football games and dance recitals. And for everything that I read about him, he was an amazing dad, an amazing grandpa.
That just fucks me off because I know
Right?
he was just trying to slide into, especially just the radical like anomaly that he
Yeah.
happened to have 7 kids as well.
Like, he just literally, that time in jail was just a blip
Mhm.
because he went in there, he had a family with 7 children and then came out and had a family with 7 children and just kept living his life.
Yeah.
It was really weird to try and comprehend that this man is someone that so many people, like I said,
Adored.
no one had a bad word to say about him.
Yeah.
He just snapped. So then as I was reading it and I saw that he had the death penalty and then that was overturned, and I'm like, this guy killed 10 people. He absolutely needed to swing. We all know my opinion on the death penalty. I'm very much pro death penalty. In a case like this where it's black and white, he did it. There's no circumstances around it. There's no this is done.
And like, all well and good that, yes, he went on to live a life and be this great man,
yeah.
but he didn't deserve it.
Exactly. And that's like, I'm so happy that Mel and her 7 children got this amazing figure in their life and this, amazing husband,
Supporter.
amazing dad, and amazing grandpa. But you know what? Neville and Sandra and Christine and I'm going to feel so terrible if I forget the other names. Roger, Sharon, and Helen deserved that dad too. They deserved to finish school and to be married, and they deserved to give him children. They didn't deserve to die because you were angry with your wife. Like,
It's very heartbreaking.
it's such a flippy floppy case because you're glad that family got this amazing dad and that when those kids were alive they didn't know a bad life. They had an amazing life. They had parents that loved them and everything else aside from that last few weeks where they were fighting and separating.
Yeah.
But that kind of all gets undone when you drag your kid out from under the bed by a hair and shoot her.
And also an 18-month-old.
Yeah.
Just because they were there.
Yeah.
This is definitely a hard case to end then. There's no neat little bow.
No.
He didn't get a big fuck you.
No.
He's definitely one of those monsters that I wish is in hell with a pineapple.
Absolutely. It was insane because I'm reading it and I'm wanting to make jokes about him, but it was like you couldn't even make jokes about this case. And even though, like we say, the jokes are about the murder and not about the victims. But then it feels like, how do you make jokes about someone who was a good person?
Who was like a good dad and stuff. It's hard to paint those two people. It's
Yeah.
like two completely different people. You
Yep.
can't seem to combine them in your head. I
Yep.
get what you're saying.
And I just hope that there is some sort of retribution after death and that he has somehow faced punishment for what he did. And I hope wherever Heather and Eunice are, I hope all their babies are with them. Oh, another random Jade thing. When I looked up the location of where this was, it was right next to where I went to see the Highland cows the other week. Like the farms,
We're next to each other.
yeah, were
How do
joining.
you seem to
I have
just,
no idea. But now, do you remember how I took that photo of the gravestone? There was like a gravestone there. But
yeah,
you can't read what it says. All I could read on there was something about the light. So now I'm determined to find
The
out when
lights.
that land was separated. Because now, like, as I looked it up on maps. I was
Yeah.
like, where's Hope Forest? And then I looked it up and it literally had right next to it because I've been there. So it was
Yeah.
marked in my GPS. And I was like, oh, fuck off.
Oh, that's wild though. That makes me think of, what were you telling me the other day?
I
So
don't
your
think-
friend bought a photo and it was the owner or something of,
Yeah. One of my clients sent me a copy of like her family history book. And in there, one of her family members' name's Johan, and he was the first ever owner of the land that my shop is on.
yes.
So then, and because I've got a woogie in my shop who throws things and does all sorts of stuff. So then I wondered if I was getting the name Johan from him being there. And that's what led me to the other Johan case,
That's why you're
who
so
then happened to be buried in Birdwood.
yeah.
What the fuck?
And because, yeah, you think he is the one that is the Oogie Boogie in your
Yeah.
shop.
Yeah. So now it's funny because now I call him Johan. I was telling someone about it the other day, and when she left at the end of the day, it was just me in the shop. Shop was locked, packing up, doing my thing. And it seems to be whenever you talk about him,
Yeah.
it obviously gives him some sort of energy and he does stuff. Because I've had clients in there before when I've been talking about him and my neon sign come off the window, like off my glass window at the front. And like things like that, I go, oh, could just be coincidence and it's just fallen
You
now.
just happened to be talking.
Yeah. And but then another time I was talking about him and I have this basket that sits on one of my shelves that has like all the snacks, like chips and popcorn and shit in it. And that just got wiped straight off the shelf and it had a little glass skull in it and that smashed, like, because the whole thing just got knocked off.
Wow.
There's been 4 or 5 times where we've been talking about him and something's happened as we've been talking about him.
Had this like burst of energy
Yeah.
from you and just,
Yeah. And then I was talking about him the other day to Rachel, the girl that comes up and does the dreads. And then when she left, I'd like locked everything, was sitting there and I was just having a little chat to him. And I'm like, you haven't been around for a while. As I've said this, my business card holder on the counter gets knocked down and all my stickers go everywhere. And I was like, pick them up, you rat bag.
oh shit, that's cool.
Which I've got to remember now that all my cameras record now because I can go back and get those things now.
Oh, you can put that up on.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yep.
nice.
Because before I had the cameras, but they didn't record. Well, now they're all recording.
Now
So
it's a
I
fixed
can
app.
actually go back and like
Nice.
grab those things now.
Yeah, wait, that'd be good.
Yeah,
Do I have a light note to end on after that one?
Yeah. Yep. Let's give you a little happy moment. Ghosts and boogies.
Ghosts and Oogie Boogies.
Yep. So
If you have any of your own Oogie Boogies,
oh yeah, we love a good ghost story.
let us know.
Especially if you got photos and stuff too.
Yeah, definitely send that in.
Yeah.
I was like, how do we?
Put it Instagram would be the best, I reckon.
Yeah,
Send them to Instagram.
yeah,
Mm.
yeah. Send them to Instagram.
Yep. And we'll have sus. Tell us your story. Tell us your Oogie Boogie story. We should do another Oogie Boogie case. We haven't done
Little bit of
we've
a.
done a lot of murder ones lately.
We can gather some stories from. We don't have that many people. Give us a story because then we can put a bunch of things together of
Mm,
what you tell us. But
sounds good. But in the meantime, go follow us on Instagram and TikTok.
yeah, just for you Gore podcast.
Yes. And hit the little follow buttons and the bells and all the things that let you know when we actually remember to upload stuff. And it is heaps better at it than me.
I've had my moments.
And if you're listening to us from all around the world, hi,
Yeah,
Egypt.
we do appreciate it. Yeah,
Yes.
it's nice seeing, like we said earlier, it's
Yep.
nice seeing where you guys are all listening from. Welcome in all languages.
And you know where to find us next fortnight.
Hit the little bells, as Jen was saying. We'll catch you on the
See
next
you
one.
there. Bye.
Bye.